the Sinicization of Islam in China is something that has obviously become a major point in the discussion of China's human rights record, as well as international relations with other countries, as the ongoing crisis in the Uyghur region becomes something that is achieving peak public salience, especially during spotlight events like the Olympic Games. We want to talk today broadly about the sort of political and historical forces that inform what is going on, and then sort of get an understanding of the implications of this. So I'm going to start by giving a bit of context in terms of policy and sort of narrative objectives of the Communist Party's promulgation of this campaign of Sinicization. Most notably, the campaign of Sinicization occurs in large part over the last several years and begins to take shape in many ways in 2014 on a visible level after several violent events and some outbreaks of violence in the Uyghur region. Xi Jinping notably made several declarations that China was going to declare what he called a people's war on terror. And in speeches given in Urumqi to party officials behind closed doors that have since been leaked as a part of the so-called Xinjiang papers, we note that Xi Jinping has addressed problems that he considered to be associated with Islamic radicalization, or in his case, what he called sort of a virus or an infected virus that is radical Islam, one that he associated with distance from Chinese culture. And in remarks were given in Urumqi in 2004, she stated that the cure, quote unquote, cure for this infectious contagion of radical Islam was adhering closer to the Chinese system and the core values of Chinese socialism. The quote you may note is on the screen here, but adhering to Chinese characteristics and realigning religion and Islam with Chinese culture was seen as a core objective from the party in response to these events. These would later take more expression in his address to the 19th Party Congress, in which she specifically said that the basic policy on religious affairs of the party is that the party must uphold the principle that religions in China must be Chinese in orientation and provide active guidance to religions so that they can adopt themselves to socialist society. Now, I want to highlight a couple of things here in these remarks. The association of Islam with extremism in these remarks paints Islam in a threatening light to the Chinese state building project and to Chinese identity, and in emphasizing that this is a contagion that must be cured with Chinese remedies, adhering to Chinese culture. Xi Jinping sets up a Han-centric vision of what inclusion in the state, including via religious practice, may imply. And so this sets up a Sinicizing program that then gains expression in a number of different ways. Now, our other panelists are going to talk about the most prominent examples of this that are happening in the Uyghur region, and I will leave that conversation to them. I want to highlight how this program of Sinicization has spread throughout China and is really a nationwide and comprehensive program of Sinicization by looking at how it affects ethnic Hui communities, ethnic Hui Muslim communities. Hui are often referred to in media as Chinese-speaking Muslims. And we saw as early as 2018 signs that the kinds of Sinicization or alignment of Islam with Sinicized ideals had begun to happen in Hui communities outside of the Uyghur region, including in places like Yinchuan. What you see here is the front gate of the Nanguan Mosque in Yinchuan. This is its pre-Sinicization form in 2016. It is notable that this architecture is strongly Arabesque in a lot of its features, or reminiscent of Mughal architecture, featuring prominent onion domes, crescent moons, and Arabesque features. In 2020, the front gate of the Nanguan Mosque looked like what you see on your screen now. It had largely been stripped of its identifying features as an Islamic building. It's stripped of its Arabic features, and it had been in a very prominent way Sinicized, made to look like more traditional Chinese buildings. This is not the only example of this process. For instance, the Grand Mosque of Huizhou, also in Ningxia Hui Autonomous Region down the road from Yinchuan, was prominently Sinicized with its large domes removed and replaced with roofs that are reminiscent of famous Chinese buildings like the Temple of Heaven in Beijing. This kind of Sinicization, or the adoption of traditional Chinese architectural features, is not only limited to buildings, it also gains expression in Sinicizing other aspects of public space. As this document from the government of the 𝗏滁 Autonomous County, this is often referred to as China's Little Mecca for its historical and cultural ties to the Islamic world. A document on the Sinicization policy pursued in 𝗏滁highlights how Sinicization also affects other aspects of culture, including the removal of loudspeakers that broadcast the call to prayer, and also of Arabic language and Arabic writing, Arabic art forms in public spaces. The document specifically cites that avoiding the Saudification or Arabization is something that officials in 𝗏滁 need to be put on guard against, to adopt the Sinicization of Islam in China and the alignment of Islam in 𝗏滁 with Chinese characteristics or Chinese culture. It should also be noted that this kind of program of alignment of Chinese Islamic sites with Chinese culture happens in the midst of a rise in Islamophobia that happens throughout China. What you see here are screenshots of a report from The Independent about an instance of Islamophobic attacks on a mosque in Hefei in the province of Anhui, in which a pig's head was buried in the ground at a construction site of a mosque, and imams trying to build this mosque in Hefei received death threats. So the call to Sinicization, or the political moves towards Sinicization, have been echoed in an intensifying climate that associates features of Islam that are foreign or outside of a Chinese cultural context with threat and danger. And this is one of the largest takeaways from this presentation, is that the alignment of policy is such that we want to understand how Islam is being read as both foreign and threatening. Now, I want to pause on one particular example that I think is evocative of how this issue is sort of resonating in popular discourse, and that is the example of the Dongguan Mosque in Xining. Historically, the Dongguan Mosque has been incredibly important for Chinese Islam. It is one of the largest and most prominent mosques in China, and it is also the seat of Ikhwani or Ikhwan Islam, a reformist sect of Islam that is tied very closely to the Chinese Islamic Association and the Chinese state. As it appeared in 2016, the elaborate front gate of the mosque featured very Arabesque features, onion domes, tall minarets, visible crescent moons, and it was a prominent feature of the streetscape in urban Xining. In addition, loudspeakers faced the street in order to broadcast the call to prayer and allow worshipers who spilled out of the mosque courtyard and into a larger space on the street to worship alongside with those who are inside. So you can see here in the picture on the left, the front gate is a front structure in front of the larger prayer hall, and it was a defining feature of this mosque community. By 2020, this space, which as you can see in this photo, had become a congregation point for worshipers in the community and a real focal point of community religious and cultural life, had also been Sinicized. This is how the Dongguan Mosque appeared in 2021, stripped of its domes, stripped of its minarets, and behind construction walls. Why is this transformation from an obviously Arabesque building towards a Sinicized one significant? Well, one, this mosque is a seat of cultural and political significance within Chinese Islam, and it shows that even state and official aligned structures are prone to Sinicization, and it has also become a site that is a significant enough site to promote resentment and backlash from members of the Hui community. Notably, as the building began to be Sinicized, people began to use a silent protest in front of the mosque, praying in an obvious fashion, showing remorse that the building was being Sinicized. This one woman's lone prayer went viral on Chinese social media and inspired cartoons that mocked or that mimicked the tragedy that was unfolding. Likewise, it became a flashpoint for international diplomacy. In particular, Christina Scott of the United Kingdom's mission to China has pointed out these Sinicized buildings in her tweets in trying to call out what she views as an abuse of human rights or a cultural erasure. So this is very much a contemporary issue that informs not only relations between China and its Muslim populations, but also how China is dealing with international relations and expressions of relations between countries. So this is why this is a significant and important topic to consider. And this is sort of the background to our conversations today. This ongoing campaign to Sinicize religion and Sinicize Islamic communities is something that is ongoing and long running. And we want to sort of explore the dynamics of this.